Okay, it's a little after 3. I'll call the meeting of the Board of Directors of Trinity Metro to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would once again ask Ben to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any citizen cards, comments? We don't have any cards. Anybody want to visit with us? We'll close the hearing for citizen comments. The next agenda item is the approval of the September 22 board meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion, a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Moving into information item and report, let's talk to, who's Brad here? There he is. Okay, give us the good news.
What's that?
Give us the good news.
It's all good news. What are you talking about?
Yes, sir.
Afternoon, board members. Brad Beeson, manager of rail operations here at Trinity Metro. I'm here today to give you the numbers for the on-time performance and ridership for the month. You go to page 8 in your packet. TexRail's ridership is still increasing by the day. As you can see, for the month of August, we had a ridership of about 73,000 rides last month, which is roughly about a 7% increase over this time last year. If you can see the diagram at the bottom left of the screen there, we had just over 872,000 rides for the year, which is about 11% increase for the year. So that's good news for us. We see it still climbing every day. We're still getting new riders every day, so it's good for everything on TexRail. TRE also increased its ridership. If you go to the next, oh, here I'll go.
Before you leave,
Oh, man. Oh,
before you leave
Yeah.
TexRail, when we open the Mistletoe Station, what are your thoughts about ridership?
that's hard to pinpoint. We don't know how many people ride into TMP right now that go to the hospital district, so it's hard to pinpoint a number. I couldn't really I don't want to give you a number and just be that far off. I mean, Rich, you look like you're trying to jump in there.
That's okay. Would you like me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have been meeting with the hospital presidents one-on-one, and we'll be having a roundtable with them in the very near future. One of the conversation points with the hospital presidents is to get zip code data for their employee base to do a deeper dive on the market opportunity. The second thing I'll say about that is right now, not all of the hospital campuses are connected to the rail system through the bus network. So we are developing concepts to link Mistletoe and TMP via a bus connector to link all the campuses. So more on that to follow. We don't have details on that yet. So the goal would be to allow people to ride TexRail into the medical district and then connect seamlessly to a shuttle bus to their employment destination.
But thanks for putting me on the hot seat there, Jeff.
Yeah,
TRE also increased its ridership from this time last year. They had about 113,000 rides last month. We think a lot of that is the fair started. We are starting to get game trains. Mavericks and Stars kicking off, so it's real good for TRE. That was about an increase of about 12% over last year. For the year, TRE had a little over 1.3 million rides for about a 3% increase over last year. On-time performance for the railroads both continue to exceed our goals. Last month, TexRail had a 98.1% on-time performance, and TRE had just over 99% on-time performance. Our teams continue to make safety a priority here. We have achieved 2,840 days injury-free. And with that, I'll take any questions.
questions? Thank you.
Hopefully one I can answer.
Careful. Thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
All right, Reed, talk to us about bus ridership.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Board of Directors. I'm Reed Land. I'm Chief Operating Officer here at Trinity Metro. I'm here to give you the bus ridership and on-time performance update, which you'll find on pages 12 through 14. And before I get into that, I will mention, Brad, great job. One of the reasons we're still seeing an increase in ridership on TexRail is the cleanliness and reliability of the trains. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Sherry Lee. Her leadership on our quality and performance program has been extremely impactful to the success and continued use of TexRail. We continue to this day get compliments about how clean, how quiet and smooth, and how friendly our crews are. So again, I just wanted to take time to give Sherry a quick shout out. She's done a phenomenal job with that. Now on to our bus ridership update. On page 12, we've got some KPIs. Now, I will say this. We've had some recent changes on the operations side. So we're taking a hard look right now on how we report these numbers and the KPIs we use. So I will tell you, these are the existing ones from before, the measurements and goals that we've had. Next month, nothing wrong with these. We just want to make sure we're providing you the best data possible. So on page 12, you'll see our Trinity Metro bus stats, our miles between road calls. Now, that looks a little striking when you see it at first, but the goal that was set last year was very ambitious. Now, we want to be ambitious and we want to push ourselves, but we also have to be realistic. We do have an aging fleet of buses, and I can tell you our mechanics are doing a phenomenal job ensuring that every morning we're achieving rollout, right? We're not missing runs. The guys and gals in the shop are working hard every day to make sure we're providing our full amount of service. So you can see we were a little under our goal for the miles between road calls, but again, next month we're going to have that at a more realistic metric. Our preventable collisions per 100K miles, we were able to decrease that somewhat, but it's still a bit above our goal. Lower is better on that. So we are actually with the safety team looking at starting we're debating pilot program for some technological assistance, right, with the collision warning systems to see if that would kind of help us out a little bit. Safety events per 100K, our goal is to be below 0.4. We came in at 0, so kudos to the team for the month of September. Our on-time performance, again, the guys and gals in the shop are doing a great job keeping those up, and so are the operators. We are still under goal, but I can tell you that in October, we've seen a rise in on-time performance. So the team's working hard to get back up to our goal of 89%. And we do have a bit of a good news story on our bus ridership. For the year, bottom left-hand corner box, you'll see we finished the year at 4,671,000 rides, which is about 51,000 above our ridership last year. So we are seeing some growth in the bus ridership, and we're going to do our best to continue that trend and increase it. On page 13, we have our paratransit and on-demand in-house statistics. Again, we were able to improve, our goal is to have miles between road calls at 11,000. We came in at 13.8. Again, we're looking to continue to improve on that and get it closer to our goal. Preventable collisions, we had 0 in the month of September, which is obviously a great thing. And then our safety events per 100K miles, our goal is at 0.45. We came in at 1.07. That was from after meeting with our safety team. 2 events led to that, right? So that could be something that was not our fault. And I believe in this case, it was a non-preventable collision where some folks had to be transported. So it was not due to our fault, but we still have to report that. OTP is above goal for the month of September, which is encouraging. And our ridership has kind of stayed flat right now, but we expect that to start to rise in the coming months. On page 14, we have the paratransit and on-demand contracted services statistics. So we want to be above, our miles between road calls above 45,000. We are just right underneath it. So we feel pretty confident we can get that up. Preventable collisions per 100K, we had, I believe, 1, and because of the miles we run, that kind of skews the statistics a little bit. And then as well as the safety events. Our on-time performance, again, we're hovering right underneath our goal, looking to move that up. The team is doing a great job. We've gone through a lot of change on the contracted services side, and we're seeing some improvement, and we're going to continue to push that to where we can get above goal again. Ridership on the contracted side has been very encouraging. As you can see, we've seen some significant growth in our contracted services on paratransit on demand. We finished last month with 22.5 thousand riders, right around the same as the month before. So that's well above the previous year's performance. I will mention, you may have seen it in some of the press, I'll say some of the issues we've had on the Blue Line, right? So we were alerted earlier this month to a recall that affected our electric buses that we utilize for the very successful Blue Line service. In an abundance of caution, we got together with the team. There was a lot of input, a lot of things thrown out for consideration, and we decided to err on the side of caution and pull those buses out of service until New Flyer, the vendor, could implement some pretty concrete solutions to what the issue was, the overheating issues, right? There was a possibility of fire. Nobody wants to see that downtown Fort Worth. So again, safety is our number one priority here, whether it's our employees or our public, right? So we pulled those out of service, and I want to give a shout out to the ops team. They came up with some very creative solutions to where we didn't lose any service, right? We had some regular buses providing the Blue Line service, which looked a little different, but part of the creativity of the team was they decided to use the buses we had wrapped for the Mavericks, and so they were still blue buses on the Blue Line, right? And I don't know if you've noticed today, the team immediately began working on retrofitting the old Molly buses they're wrapped exactly the same as the Blue Line buses. They had to be stripped, some paint applied, a wrap. The seats have been switched out and replaced, music uploaded. So it's just as much like the Blue Line, the electric buses as we could get, which it's actually pretty tremendous to go out there and watch those Mollies. And when you remember what they used to look like and see them now, they look like just a little shorter Blue Line buses. So with that, I'll wrap up. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Questions? Reed? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Nicole. You still have your competitive juices going?
You know it. How are y'all doing today? Hold on. Here we go. You ready? All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nicole Burton, Strategic Partnerships Manager. Easy Ride now supports 181 partner organizations, 1,050 North Tarrant Chamber of Commerce businesses, reflecting our growing footprint. This expansion highlights the program's scalability, its alignment with local needs, and underscores the program's value as transportation solution tailored to our area's needs. September remained a strong month, driven by fiscal year-end alignment with many partner organizations. The timing often results in increased purchasing, remaining budget funds at the end of the year as they release. In September, Easy Ride sold over 15,000 tickets, including a single bulk purchase of 10,500 tickets on the final day. This surge highlights the impact of the year-ending spending and reinforces Easy Ride's strategic value during this key period. Between August and September, we saw a shift in rider behavior. In August, day pass sales declined while weekly and monthly passes increased, indicating more consistent long-term use between commuting and school. September reversed that trend with higher day pass sales and fewer weekly and monthly pass purchases, suggesting more short-term travel. Annual passes sales rose slightly, pointing to growing interest in long-term commitments. These shifts highlight the importance of offering flexible pass options to meet riders' needs, allowing Trinity Metro to stay responsive and accessible year-round. Our partnership with TCC continues to flourish as illustrated in the graph on the lower left. TCC students actively rely on Trinity Metro services to allow all campuses with ridership approaching 6,000 rides. This strong partnership highlights the dedicated outreach efforts by Trinity Metro staff to inform and empower the TCC community about available transit options. Meanwhile, the graph on the lower right reflects a mid-year dip in the ridership among the City of Fort Worth employees. In response, we launched a targeted engagement initiative at City Hall promoting TexRail for daily commutes and encouraging midday travel with Trinity Metro bikes. These efforts have successfully reversed the decline, reaffirming the commitment to providing accessible transit, dependable transportation. So as you can see on that graph for the City of Fort Worth, September, we ended up back around 1,500 rides. So everything that we've been doing has been working. We are truly grateful for all of our agencies, and I want to especially recognize our top 10 partner agencies for their unwavering commitment to expanding transit access in our region. Through their investment in transit passes and their dedication to promoting transportation awareness, they empower their members to reach vital services, jobs, healthcare, and more. By choosing Trinity Metro, these partners exemplify fiscal responsibility and help forge strong, meaningful connections with our communities. Their leadership and vision continue to inspire us. To our partners, I say thank you. Thank you for standing with us, for believing in the power of mobility, and for helping us build a more connected, economically vibrant future. Together, we are making a real difference. Overall, as you can see, right there, Easy Ride has seen a strong performance this year, with revenue increasing over 15% from FY24. This growth reflects a rising demand for reliable transit solutions and the success of strategic partnerships and targeted outreach. The increase in revenue also highlights a growing shift toward transit as a preferred mobility option, supporting regional economic development. Thanks to these efforts, we're seeing a clear boost in ridership and ticket purchasing, evidence that smart collaboration is driving real results. Have quite a bit, y'all. Earlier this summer, Trinity Metro launched a second transit initiative tailored for American Airlines and DFW airport employees. The program was designed to meet the unique needs of employees who would commute by car and park at DFW North Lot and take the last mile to Terminal B via TexRail. Brad Beeson represented Trinity Metro during American Airlines Hydration Days, while Nate Newby and myself collaborated with DFW Airport and American Airlines teams to develop creative, employee-focused marketing campaigns that promote transit as a reliable, stress-free option. In July, Visit Fort Worth hosted a 2-day Orange Line activation in support of the Future Farmers of America, showcasing their commitment to youth engagement and transit support. Through a new partnership with the Fort Worth Public Library, over 20,000 library card holders will now receive a 25% savings on transit fares. This is a strategic effort to educate and inspire a new generation of readers while they ride. Lastly, I would like to, the Fort Worth Botanic Garden Nature RX collaboration, which is something I thought was just very inspiring, offered a fresh approach to wellness and stress management. With the provider-issued prescription for tranquility at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden, Trinity Metro provided the peace of mind of a car-free journey. Together, these partnerships are not only enriching lives, they are proving that when we work together, mobility becomes a powerful tool for progress. I'd like to extend our sincere thank you to the community bus partners selected for FY25. Your participation in the Community Partners Program and dedication to sharing your agency's message throughout our local area are truly valued, and your commitment helps strengthen awareness, engagement, and access to the communities that we serve. This has been a very, last fiscal year was a really good year for all of our partners, and we had a really good time doing more than what we've done the previous year. So looking ahead to FY26, our first partner that we would like to announce will be Girls Inc. of Tarrant County. This is an organization that empowers girls to reach their full potential through mentorship, enriched learning environments, and a strong sense of sisterhood. And I also like to give a special thanks to Exposure. Through this collaboration, nearly 10 nonprofit organizations have been able to amplify their message and connect with more individuals across our service area. Together with Exposure, we are helping bridge communities to the essential resources to support growth, opportunity, and everyday life. And I thank y'all so much for listening to me. Any questions?
No? All right, keep it up. We'll
Thank you.
check back with you and see if you're still have an edge.
I did. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as Greg Jordan's coming to the microphone, I just wanted to tee up this conversation. As you all know, we've been focused on finding a path forward for our Tex Rail Medical District Extension project. That's the 2-mile extension from T&P Terminal into the medical district at Mistletoe. Key objective of that project is to provide access to the 50,000 jobs that are in that district. Greg is going to walk us through today a cash flow forecast for that project. The reason we're doing that today at this meeting is that we are getting very close to coming to this board for approval of a variety of contracts to build that extension. The first of those contracts will be coming in front of this board as early as next month. And so we thought now would be the appropriate time to have a conversation about the path forward on the funding and financing of that project. So Greg, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Greg Jordan, Chief Financial Officer. I wanted to spend a little time with you today to go through the cash flow for Tex Rail and TRE. We, at this point, we're very optimistic, but we're also quite cautious with our path forward. And so I wanted to run through the cash flow and let you know what this all looks like. So this afternoon, I'm going to walk you through a 5-year evaluation. The emphasis of this is going to be on the 2 projects that we have before us. I'm going to go through the assumptions, key variables, then I'm going to wrap it up with a scenario comparison of everything that we've gone through, and then also jump into the staff recommendation at that point. So we've got, on the Tex Rail side, we've got $295 million worth of expenses in front of us. This is made up of $65 million worth of trains, $220 million worth of extension cost, and then we've got $10 million for the yard for the new trains that are coming through. On the TRE, now these are fully funded by COG. The TRE, the trains are about $30 million. It's a 60-40 distribution at this point. And then the double track, we're looking at $43.5 million. So we've got about $350 million going out the door between now and the beginning of 2030. Okay. So our sources of funds, Trinity Metro is looking, our full commitment is right about $78 million. We've got federal commitment of about $144.7, and other partners, including COG and the City of Fort Worth, for $72 million. Now, that brings the total project cost for the Tex Rail extension to $295. Okay. Growth assumptions. So when we look at this, we had to first look at the operating budget. We're forecasting that for the next 5 years. We're also looking at the spend for the capital expenses, and then I'll be showing you how it looks with the cash flow. We're growing revenues and expenses evenly at 2.5%. One of the things that's really important with this is because we have so much federal dollars coming in, and the way that we work is on a reimbursement basis. So we have to spend our dollar first, and then we get reimbursed on the back end. So consequently, you can imagine if you have a short turnaround for those dollars, it's much less stressful on the organization. If you have a long reimbursement process, it gets more stressful on the organization. And that'll become very apparent in a second. We've also got these, the two analyses that I'm going to give you, they're going to present side by side. One of them is a full meal deal for TexRail and TRE. The other one is just TexRail only. So we have the juxtaposition of what does cash flow look like if we do everything, and then what's it look like if we exclude TRE and just do the TexRail project. It also assumes that we're going to achieve our budget goals. We've removed one-time revenues. If you recall, in this year's operating budget, we had $12.5 million that we were paying ourselves back for the TRE vehicles that we purchased. And then also, being fully transparent, we will not meet our reserve requirement under some of these scenarios that I lay out in front of you. It's also important to note that these looks are all things remaining constant, right? And so what I mean by that is the known knowns are included. We have some land that we are anticipating selling over the course of the next year. The dollars that and the income that we will see off of those transactions are not included in this. So this is a very much a ceteris paribus viewpoint of the world looking forward. So on the left, this is the cumulative spend for TRE and TexRail, and the different lines represent, different aspects of the project. The cumulative line is the one on the very top. So on the left, all programs, cumulatively speaking, we'll see about $356 million of spend through 2030. As I mentioned earlier, the illustration on the right, and this is going to be presented throughout the deck this way, the illustration on the right excludes the double track, so we can see what that looks like without it. Okay. On 180-day processing, we see the blue line, which is our reserve. It's pretty erratic, right? So because we have to wait for those funds to come in. And so the total expenditures is the darker line. On the right, we can see, similar, but excluding the double track. So if we do both projects and we have 180-day repayment time for all aspects, worst case, we're anticipating now, again, based on those assumptions of 2.5% growth on the operating side and then incorporating the spend as we currently anticipate it, about $16.5 million upside down on the 180 processing. Excluding that, the worst it gets is about $6.7 million. And this forecast is showing about $8 million in reserve at the end of the project. And I'm going to expand a little bit on that in just a second.
Hey, Greg, because you're going to go through a variety of these charts, could you just take a moment to explain the valley and the peaks there, what that's telling us?
Sure. And it really it starts to make sense as we move along. But I also want to take a moment, too, to say, as always, whenever I present, I want you guys to just jump in and interrupt me as I go. So as Rich said, the reserve value, it does have greater valleys because of the time by which we get repaid from our partners. This one, right, smooths out a little bit because it's a 90-day processing period. So again, the 180, it's pretty erratic, and then we come into the 90-day processing. And then when we look further.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't know that everyone caught that. A negative reserve balance, could you just explain what a negative reserve balance means?
It means we have negative dollars in the bank. It means that we will, if we find ourselves in that position, we are going to have serious conversations around what programs continue at the same pace and what programs we cut back on. So for those of you that serve on councils, you see these types of views often when you get your long-range financial forecasts from your city CFOs. And so what we generally see over time and over a long enough timeline, 10, 15 years out, you'll see a significant gap. And we'll say, well, we're going to be $50 million in the hole, 15 years from now. And 10 years from now, it's going to be 25. But what we do each year when we go through the budget process is we knock those values back down so we have a balanced budget, right? So you have a rebalancing every year. The long-range forecast always gives a worst-case scenario. It always gives a very negative outlook and picture. However, as you go through the annual operating process, you end up bringing everything back into parity. Now, again, these forecasts are designed to help us have the thoughtful conversation around it. It's very difficult to project, 5 years into the future, but based on the assumptions that we're comfortable with, these are the outlooks that we see. Now, I think it's also very fair for me to say at this point, it's highly unlikely we see a 180-day processing period, right? But for the sake of illustrating what could be, it was prudent to show the 180, the 90, and the 45-day look.
Greg, who controls the processing?
Well, that we control what we can, right? So there's a bundling process that occurs. When we get our invoices for work that's been completed, we pay those invoices, in direct accordance with the contracts. So in most cases, it's a 30-day processing period. Then we gather up all of the receipts, all the required documentation, and we'll typically send that over to COG, and then COG will help fund the money back to us. Sometimes it's Council of Governments, sometimes it's FTA. So there's a different process that we go through with different income streams. But, overall, it is a pretty rapid turnaround. There's a lot of steps that have to take place prior to advancing the ball in that scenario. But once we get there, we will have everything lined up, and then we'll be submitting and having, hopefully, a very rapid response in turn. I'll tell you, we got... The government's going into its third week of shutdown, and we got reimbursed last week for $16 million. So we are still seeing money flow to us at this point. We are, which is very encouraging. So the 180-day, again, this is the most bleak outlook, and this is the only one that really looks like that. When we look at the 90-day outlook, right, we don't have that negative posture that we see with the 180. And then, again, that light blue line gets a real nice smooth arc when we look at the 45-day processing. So I'll pause right there and offer any opportunity for questions. Okay.
I mean, we're fine as long as we process these quickly is what it looks like.
Yes, and then there's general risks around the general economic conditions, right? So those are the things that we're always going to keep a real close eye on. These two looks give you the viewpoint of all three of those scenarios, right? All lumped into one. So the red line illustrates what it looks like at 180 days, the yellow, 90, and the black, 45. And in each case, you end up with the same ending spot of 7.8. Now, what happens if we see revenues lag or revenues exceed our expectations? If we see a 1% decline in the revenues over that same time period and we haven't made any corrective actions, well, then we find ourselves with a $15 million position in the hole. Again, that just means that we are not being able to meet all of our obligations. What happens if revenues increase by 1%? Well, then we have a substantially better ending spot. It's the nature of spreadsheet math, right? And so these things, again, we'll manage on an annual basis. The green and the blue bars in that chart, those illustrate the operating revenues and operating expenses. So, and again, it's the 45, 90, and 180 load. All right. So what do we think the world really looks like with the crystal ball? We think it looks somewhere similar to the 90 days and 2.5% growth on revenues and expenses. I think it's also noteworthy to say, when we put this thing together, this was based on all the information we had at the time. Since then, we've learned that there are some tariff risks associated with some of the Tex-Rail vehicles, and those could eclipse, $7 million or so. But there's a lot that we're still paying attention to on that. And just because that's where we are today doesn't mean that's where we end up when the vehicles start coming in. I think it's also noteworthy to comment that sales tax for June, July, and August, because we have a 2-month lag, so we just got the August receipts in October. But we saw those values increase year over year, 4%, and then we saw a 0% in July, and then we also saw a 3% increase for the month of August. So by all accounts, consumers are still spending, and that's being reflective in the sales tax revenues that we receive. So what's the ultimate recommendation? Staff's recommendation at this point, and this is just an information item, we don't need action on it, but what we are recommending is that we advance the TexRail and TRE double track projects. We've got to go out to the market to get final pricing for the extension so we can see what those numbers look like. They may come in better than what we've anticipated. They may come in worse than what we've anticipated. But until we get that information, we just won't have the full picture. And then afterwards, we'd want to return to the board for final consideration. One of the other things that we can do, too, to help move the project forward is we can look at different ways that we can value engineer the yard for the TexRail vehicles. That could come in the form of a phased approach. It could come in the form of using different building materials. It could come in the form of the size. I mean, we can look at that for a number of alternatives there. Eventually, we're going to have to manage through that project and spend those dollars, but there could be as much as $10 million if we get very, very creative with that. And then finally, we'll continue to manage the operating growth, and that way we're always going to present a balanced budget to the board, right? And so as we move forward throughout the timeline of this, we would be constantly looking to make any necessary adjustments throughout the fiscal year, as well as our upcoming fiscal planning process. So with that, I will conclude my presentation and answer any questions the board might have.
Do you anticipate the sale of any property that would kind of back us up a little?
There's a couple pieces that we're looking at, and I anticipate that those could bring in somewhere near $6 million together. Both of these are going to be on the list for us to dispose of during the FY26 fiscal year. Yes.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Well, we kind of know when these spins are coming. Should we be working with our partners ahead of time on kind of letting them know, hey, we're about to spend this chunk, be ready with this check, and kind of just go down the line of the Gantt chart and kind of just place these out?
Right. Well, this was based on that Gantt chart. So I think this is as reflective as the future that we could get. Certainly, if we found ourselves in any sort of precarious situation, we would definitely be communicating with our partners to make sure that they're aware. But I would also tell you that well before that, we would have made any corrective changes necessary so that we don't find ourselves in that situation.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
I would just, great job, Greg. Really thorough look at what we can expect. You may all recall a project called NT Moves. It was a regional partnership led by NCT COG and Michael Morris to fund 2 double-track expansions on TRE and a train technology called ClearPath. We notified Michael Morris earlier this year that we would be unable to proceed with that project due to funding shortfalls at Trinity Metro relative to the TexRail program. And we said at the time, if we had to pick one, we were going to prioritize the TexRail extension. Michael Morris and NCT COG have come back to Trinity Metro and said they will work with us to find the local funding so that we don't have to contribute the local funding to that project. We appreciate that very much, but that's then triggered a second discussion, which is around who's paying, whose dollar is paying for the contractor, because that matters in this case. You heard Greg's presentation. So if we took TRE double track out of the equation, as you saw in the slides, the outlook is a whole lot better. We want to be good partners with NCT COG. We want to find a way forward for the double track program. But it is very much I hate to use the word complicating, but it's it's another dimension to this conversation. And so I think right now, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're having conversations with COG about innovative, creative ways to have dollars advanced to Trinity Metro. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And it seems like at this point, these, what we're hopeful for is that we can get a cash bucket sort of up front that we can pre-fund a lot of this with. And then as we move forward, we can draw down against that and then replenish it so that as the project comes to a close, then we just narrow those dollars with the rest of the project. So when we're done spending, we'll be done with the last dollars in the metaphorical bucket. So
How does the ClearPath technology come into our commitment?
it's probably a question for somebody more knowledgeable about ClearPath than myself.
You knew I was going to ask it, Ray.
The ClearPath technology it's used mainly at Metro and in the Chicago region. It's a logistics software, kind of a predictive scheduling type of software that makes train movement easier. Trying to find the right way to put this.
Go ahead.
We don't really have the need for it here in the region. The capacity issues and the constraints that you see in the Chicago area where you have multiple commuter lines, multiple freight lines that all use the same trackage, we don't necessarily have that same situation here. But if we were to have that situation in the future and ClearPath was already here, it could be beneficial. I hope that.
How much does it cost?
$1 million. Right now, we're still in discussions with COG on the final cost of that. They have committed to paying for the implementation of the software and for the first few years of operation of the software. Beyond that, that's what we're in discussions with right now.
How many railroads in the United States use ClearPath?
I can't answer that accurately. I can tell you here, currently 0. But not, I'm not sure how many in the Chicago area are using it right now.
Are they in fact using it in Chicago?
That's what I've been told. Yes, sir. It's my understanding.
And Reed, isn't it true that in order for ClearPath to work, all of the railroads in a given region have to use it?
If you are a user of the general rail network in a region, you need every user of that network to fully cooperate and provide data for it to be useful.
Reed, what would the motivation be for ClearPath?
Great question.
It's all about making train movement more efficient and scheduling and productivity. We control solely the movements of our trains, or the commuter rail trains here in the region. So again, it does not provide much benefit for us. On the freight side of the world, though, if you've got a train that leaves Temple at 12, I'm going back to like your 8th grade STAR test. A train leaves Temple at 12:05 carrying, and when's it going to arrive in Dallas, right? So it is, again, allows you to move freight trains a lot more efficiently and fit more into smaller windows.
Thanks, Reed. I know this is a difficult subject. I think maybe folks need to know, we just have some questions about the use of that technology.
Yes, sir.
But just on TRE, would that help us run more express? We could theoretically run an express train if we kind of had a clear path with our existing single track.
Conceivably, there could be some benefit there. But again, since we do have full control of the dispatching of the TRE corridor, we, for lack of a better term, we know it like the back of our hand, right? So we can just as easily create those windows ourselves.
Thanks, Reed. Any other questions for Greg? Okay. Thank you so much. That was really important. Are we going to talk about the meeting schedule?
Yeah, our Chief of Staff, Christine Black, is out, so I'm going to pinch hit. We haven't, let's see here. On page 41 of your packet, we have an information item Every year, we have 10 dates when this board meets. We take the months of July and December off, so the schedule is in your packet. I'd just like to call your attention. Typically, our meetings are the third Monday of every month. The exceptions are in bold. On January 20th, that's been adjusted to a Tuesday for a holiday. February 17th, adjusted due to a holiday, and April 13th due to my and leadership travel that'll be occurring during that time. If you have any feedback now, I'll take it. If you have any concerns, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll publish this as the intended schedule for 2026.
That's good. All right. That completes the information item and reports. We have a consent agenda. If anybody would like to remove any item from the consent agenda and have it discussed, just let me know and we'll automatically remove that. There's no vote required. Would anybody like to remove a consent action item? And by way of background, maybe Rich could just talk generally about FIFA and what we're trying to do with our consent agenda on those FIFA items.
So I'm sorry, it was.
I gotcha.
Yeah, this is the question about why we're doing consent?
Yeah, well, no, about the FIFA specifically, about, we're just throwing in a lot of the items that the RTC's agreed to pay for.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reed Lanham, would you give us an update on that? Thank
Good
you.
afternoon, Reed Lanham.
Short presentation.
So briefly, these items that are in support of the FIFA World Cup preparation efforts are for the Trinity Railway Express. Our partners at DART have been working closely with COG to ensure, and we've been working along closely with them to ensure that the TRE is as ready as possible for the anticipated crowds and events that are taking place. These are all going to be funded by DART and COG. COG is reimbursing DART for these costs. So this is really a very beneficial thing for us, right? New seats, new speakers, and then new paint as well, along with, we've already brought to you and you guys approved the leasing of additional equipment to help support our service during that time. So that's what this is about, because it is TRE related and we are co-owners of the TRE. Although we're not going to have any financial obligation for these, you guys still needed to be aware of these and what's going on.
Thank you, Reed. That's kind of one of the high points. Thank you. I'll accept a motion for approval of consent.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Yeah.
No, I was just,
Motion and a second for approval of the consent action items BA 202526-1 through 6. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, President's report. Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to start today with just an update on a agreement I signed last week with Amtrak. Let's go back in time. So in the early 2010s, this organization was securing agreements with partners, including the Union Pacific, Amtrak, city governments. And a key agreement at the time was to secure the Union Pacific's approval of certain project elements. And in that negotiation, there was a desire to have the Amtrak train that operates from Chicago to Los Angeles shifted from the Union Pacific line over to the Trinity Railway Express alignment. In that negotiation at the time, this organization signed a 10-year agreement with the Union Pacific and Amtrak to whereby Amtrak would relocate its trains to our railroad, and we would cover the cost of insurance and an additional, what they labeled a risk fee. That was a necessary compromise at the time, a very challenging set of agreements that had to be secured. That agreement was expiring last week. So I went back to the 2014 board approval of that, or 2015 board approval of that item. And it did give us the latitude to secure a new agreement, which we have done. I'm bringing this to the board's attention at this point because I'd like you to be aware, and in an abundance of just being thorough, we are planning to come back to you next month for a ratification. But the broad strokes of the new agreement are that we are temporarily extending the agreement 6 months. There was a period of negotiation that we entered a year ago with Amtrak, did not successfully reach conclusion. Amtrak has the ability to go to the Surface Transportation Board and seek emergency relief, injunctive relief. What that means is, in the absence of an agreement, they would appeal to a Surface Transportation Board to allow their trains to continue running on our railroad. We did not, at this point, want to be in front of the STB, not knowing what their decision would be and how long their injunctive relief would last. So we've negotiated a 6-month extension, which will now split the insurance cost for the trains over our railroad and waive the risk fee. So we are no longer paying a risk fee, and we're splitting 50-50. The 6 months is intended, we're calling that a so-called negotiation period. Our intention is to follow up this week with a letter to Amtrak indicating that we have no intention of paying any of the insurance costs going forward. But we felt this was the prudent thing to do to keep the trains moving, avoid a hearing in front of STB. Should that be a necessity in the future, we're not shying away from that, but we felt that it made sense at this point to give ourselves collectively another 6 months of time to negotiate and hammer out an agreement. We think that the operation of the Amtrak service on the TRE does make sense. It's a commuter railroad. It's maintained to higher commuter rail speeds, unlike freight service, which does not move at the speed of commuter service. And so there's a lot of synergy, not to mention the fact that these long-distance intercity trains bring people from outside the region into our region, and then they connect with the commuter services. So there's a lot of synergies here. We want to be a good host. We want to continue to have these trains operate, but we do not want to have it be done at the expense of Trinity Metro. I think I covered all the bases there, Joel. Joel, thank you for all your support over the last couple of months. Appreciate that. Any questions before I share a few more thoughts? No? Okay. I did actually have a chance, ironically, it was planned months ago, to ride that actually very same train to Austin last week. And a couple observations. You know, in Texas, we're talking about high-speed rail, and we're talking about the opportunity. And I'll just point out that, you know, Austin is 180 some odd miles, and that we were doing, on that train ride my family and I took from Fort Worth to Austin, that alignment is mostly a single-track railroad all the way down. And so it was not surprising that we had stops multiple times along the way because somebody got across the tracks because a train was disabled ahead of us. And it sort of raised the idea in my mind that conventional rail with really double-track railroads and some upgraded equipment could actually make that service really attractive and competitive. So while I think the region should continue to entertain high-speed rail and the state of Texas should really consider those long-term investments, I think a whole lot more could be done with fairly straightforward investments. Nothing, you know, necessarily bullet trains and electrification, but some fairly straightforward upgrades. And I raise this not because Trinity Metro has a role in that, but because I think that same model applies to Trinity Metro in terms of how we evolve our business. So the team has been working on a strategic direction that will include near-term goals for this organization over the next 5 years, and then some longer-range goals. And I think incrementally moving forward with a bigger picture is the right strategy. We build with the available resources, we build as funding becomes available, but we create the long-term roadmap and vision for expansion. And so that you'll be hearing more from us in the coming months. Tara Crawford, our Vice President of Planning, is spearheading that. But we'll be back in front of you in the coming months to share more details on that plan. And with that, back to you, Mr. Chairman.
A couple things. I've been doing the chair's report for years. Y'all probably can figure out what I'm going to say from one moment to the next. So I thought I'd change this report to be more or less a board member report. And each month ahead of time, I'm going to ask if anybody would really like to talk about a specific topic. And it doesn't matter what topic it is, it'll be your topic. So I will ask someone in the future, not today. We can talk about Tarrant County College. I'd love to hear more about that. And other things that we might be interested in, but I think that might be important so people can start discussing things that they have a personal interest in, and say anything you want, because it's an open forum, and hopefully it relates to transit. That's the first thing in the future, and I'd like to call that a board member report. And then the second item is, I've been to Oklahoma City a couple times in the last few years, and it's a remarkable community. They've gone from 30th in population in the United States to 20th in the same time that we're now 11th. They're a very conservative community, yet they've invested heavily in many things that make great cities. They have the Oklahoma City Thunder, they got downtown development, Botanic Gardens, a rich urban rail project, and the staff, I think, had a visit just a few weeks ago. Yeah, and I'd like for Greg and Rich to talk about it.
Yeah, Greg, if you would. This all started with, believe it or not, Annette and I were sitting together, Annette Lendaros and I, talking about how to get the message out about our economic development opportunity. This is the new economic development director position. And that position we're creating to spearhead transit-oriented development here at Trinity Metro. That article was published in the Fort Worth Report, was picked up by the folks in Oklahoma City, and we got a phone call, and they said, would you all consider coming up to Oklahoma to share what's going on in your part of the world? So this started with a serendipity, right? We had an article published, the folks saw it, and of course we said yes. Anytime we have an opportunity to travel and share what's going on here at Trinity Metro and brag on ourselves, we'd like to do that. So I delivered the keynote address at the lunch, but Greg was really the star. So Greg, you want to talk a little bit about what we were on a panel together.
We were on the developers panel together, and Rich did a great job at the keynote speech. I mean, it was a full hour, no notes, and just seamless, conversation, which was really very valuable. And everybody in the room responded extremely well to it. And then afterwards, we went into this breakout session, which was standing room only, probably because the keynote speech was so solid. And then we spent time talking with developers and people in the community. And one of the things that really struck me is, I've got family that live in Edmond, and Edmond has a lot of the same characteristics that you'd find in many of our local communities, and there's a lot of parallels between Edmond and Grapevine, right? And many of the conversations that we had with people were very consistent, right? There was a lot of enthusiasm around commuter rail and increased transit. There was a lot of enthusiasm around what commuter rail and increased transit brings, such as increased property values, increased commercial retail sales, and all the other benefits that come to it. But one of the conversation points that was consistent too was, well, we want our community to stay our community. We want the fabric of our community and our historic downtown area to remain historic, and we want it to be our community still. And so we had a lot of in-depth conversations with folks about, well, let's talk about that concern that you may have, right? Because transit and commuter rail can do so many great things, and there's no reason to be afraid of that, because if we use Grapevine as an example, right, there was a whole lot of deliberate decision-making that took place in Grapevine with the transit-oriented development overlay that had different development standards for that particular zone. It created the proper amount of density and the proper amount of mix, all the way to using the same architect that had built Grapevine City Hall and some of the other local buildings that sort of stand out that look historic in nature but are very new, right? And so we had a lot of conversation with folks around that, and then as the conversation evolved, you could really see people become more enthusiastic around what could be, to the point where they'd even taken a snapshot of the Grapevine Main Station and overlaid that on a similar sized track in Edmond that said, well, look, we could have something like this. And so it was a real eye-opener to see how enthusiastic these people were. And there were several hundred people there, I think. Probably 300 or so is my guess. And but it was a very, very encouraging conversation on both sides. I mean, I think that we're going to see some of those same enthusiastic attitudes here, too, as we move forward.
And Greg and I are most excited by the synergies between what they're thinking about there in what is I think, arguably a very conservative corner of our country, right? Like a place that is thinking very pragmatically and conservatively about public investment in rail and transit, but they're also being very bold in their vision. So Jennifer, do you have if you would all take a look on the screen there, what you see in the center is downtown Oklahoma City. What you'll see in those red lines is major rail or major transit infrastructure, and they're proposing to connect the Will Rogers Airport, the Air Force Base, the University of Oklahoma, downtown Edmond, also University of Central Oklahoma. They are thinking very big. And I think that's one of the things that impresses us quite a bit about their approach. The second idea that they have really latched onto is that they have to think comprehensively across different types of public infrastructure. So while this map is highlighting the public transit, public rail components, for a few decades now, Oklahoma City has been operating with public funding approved by voters called the MAPS program. And that MAPS program funds sports, entertainment, parks, transit, rail. It's really a comprehensive public initiative. And what that's led to is a revitalization of the downtown Oklahoma City, the Brickyard, sports arenas, a couple of streetcar lines. And I think that model is really interesting, something that we'll be having further conversation on. What we're also hoping is that this will lead to a longer-term partnership with Oklahoma City. I've briefly touched base with our mayor about our desire to bring a delegation down, host them and learn from them, and vice versa, perhaps some of us going up to visit with them. I think there's quite a bit of learning that our cities can do together, both in some of the things that they've accomplished already and some of the things that we've done that they're interested in learning from. And I think they'll be sending a little bit of a fact-finding delegation down soon, right, Greg?
Yes, sir.
To look at Grapevine in particular. Did I miss anything? No.
Reminds me of Bill Tate at the opening of TexRail. Everybody, Mayor Tate, I remember his words, basically just said, dream and dream big. And look at what Grapevine has done. It's a remarkable community, a remarkable vision. With that, we'll go into executive session. Again, please excuse my reading. Since this is about real estate, I may omit some. The Board of Directors will convene an executive session under the Texas Open Meetings Act for the consultation with its attorney pursuant to Section 551.071, deliberation regarding real property pursuant to Section 551.072. We're temporarily adjourned. I'll reopen the Board of Directors meeting from the executive session at roughly 20 to 5. We have one action item, BA 2025-48, commercial property lease. I'll accept a motion.
Motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all.